Yo, what's going on, snowflakes? Did you guys like that? I don't know if you would like that or not. That or, I don't know, my Excellence Army. I don't know, I'm spitballing here because I feel like all the big popular YouTubers all have their little fandom names. And I don't really know what you make out of snow. The snowflakes or the Excellence Army. Those are my two guesses right there. I don't really know. If you have any better ones, leave them in the comments and I'll pick out a best one, I guess. I wanted to make this video since I put out that first debut video because this means a lot to me, and the story that really we told over the last 10 years, and really all the hard work and pain and, you know, all that good stuff that we put into these backyard wrestling shows. And I wanted to document all of it and really tell my side and show you exactly how long I've been doing this backyard wrestling stuff. Yeah, and this probably goes back to 2009 or 2010. Obviously, me and my brother were lifelong wrestling fans. Always have been, probably always will be, even though I don't keep up with it as much as I used to. But we had always watched it every Friday for SmackDown and every Monday for Raw. And I know David's friends had always done it. They'd always wrestled in their backyard. Guys like Ben or Brian, I'm not gonna go out their last names obviously, but you know, a couple of his friends would always be wrestling up at, just say, Ben's house. And I don't know how much this is really known by the TWA fans, but David did not come up with the name of TWA. This was actually started by his friend Ben. He's the one who started TWA. They did it just in their backyard or down at, they would do it down at the park or, like I said, outside of Ben's house. And that was really about it. And there was probably 4 or 5 wrestlers back then. You know, Ben does it for fun. And I believe it's the TWA logo that is infamous that you see is the one that Ben actually came up with. That was the original logo. I think we had gone through a couple different ones, but that was, I believe, the primary logo. So yeah, Ben and my brother and, you know, all their friend group, they had their fun doing that while it lasted. But obviously, a lot of them moved on past it. David, my brother, obviously, he wanted to keep doing it, I guess, for lack of a better word. Everybody else kind of stopped, and David wanted to keep going. And I believe it was him who actually, we got in contact with one of the churches in Marysville. But he got in contact with them, and this was, like I said, 2010, and he contacted them about putting on a wrestling show there. Surprisingly, the church said, yeah, no problem. Like, I didn't think it was that easy. It's especially not easy nowadays, I found out, to book a wrestling show in any sort of building, let alone a freaking church. It was just simple as yes, that was the first show. We had the first show booked, except the only problem was we didn't have a ring. When I say we didn't have a ring, we did not have anything. We had no idea about how to build a wrestling ring or how to anything. You know, we had no clue. David, being David, he gets a hold of the school district that we went to school to, Susquehanna, and he calls Susquehanna, or I guess he probably didn't call, he probably just talked to somebody there because he went to high school at the time, and asked them, I would assume, like I said, this is just my side of the story, not everything's accurate, but I'd assume that he asked them if he could use their wrestling mats, you know, like for tournaments, like real wrestling, their wrestling mats at the school, and for whatever reason, Susquehanna said, yeah, go ahead. They rented us them, and they took them down to the church, and that was our wrestling ring. So then our first show comes, and me, being 9, 10 years old, back then I was pissed. You know, I wanted to wrestle, that's it. I was so mad about that. But looking back now, I mean, no offense, 9-year-old me, but you're not exactly believable as a professional wrestler going up against kids in high school. You know, kids that are 3-4 times your size. I'm sorry, but I don't think you have a realistic shot at making anything look remotely believable as you can be wrestling on school mats inside of a church. So I was refereeing. That was my role for a while. And I did that for, I think, the first couple of shows. And mind you, these shows had 4 or 5 people, you know, my mom, I think once my dad, and like 2 of my siblings, and that was it. We didn't draw much of a crowd, as that so to speak. Sometimes, you know, other wrestlers would bring their family, and they would come and watch, or every now and then we'd get a distant relative to come out, but that was it. You know, we didn't draw anything even close to a crowd. You know, it was more like a family reunion. So I'm reffing for I think the first 2 or 3 shows, and then I finally get an opportunity. It's my time to shine, and it's my time to wrestle, and my opponent was none other than my other brother, Justin. My first match was against my younger brother. So I guess the chemistry was there versus anybody else, but that's about it. Because those matches, everybody's matches back then, let's just be honest. I'm sorry to anybody who used to partake in those events, but every match back then was god-awful. It was trash, it was garbage, nothing was ever good, and my matches were no exception. They were absolute garbage. So we're doing our thing down there, and we move from these wrestling mats to us in our wisdom. We actually had one time where we took tires and stacked them up, and I think it was like 2 pieces of plywood and then wood posts. When I say wood, like they were just little things of wood. They were the posts, and 4 basically pieces of yarn for our ropes going the whole way around. If I have a picture, I'll stick it in right here. That was our ring. That was all that we had. But eventually, we moved on to something a little more permanent. We had this picture right here. This was our ring. Are you not impressed? That's right. We had a tarp for a canvas. We had tires, and I believe it was a piece of plywood. And that was it. That was our wrestling ring. And by God, did it look impressive when Beast chokeslammed David Snow through that ring. But ironically, it was around the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, when we're actually starting to take a new leaf there. I mean, we're starting to draw, I still wouldn't say a crowd, but some more people. I mean, we could average, a good night for us was 15 to 20 people, I would say. That was a good night for us. Chugging along, still using this rinky-dink little wrestling ring. Like I said, things are going good. The matches aren't as bad, but they're still pretty crappy. We're starting to bring in new outside people that are finally hearing about us, and they're coming in and they want a piece of the action, and so we're having a bigger roster, which is nice because then guys don't have to wrestle 2 or 3 times a night, and they also don't have to ref 2 or 3 times a night, and ring announce 2 or 3 times a night, and on a couple of occasions commentate for whatever reason, I guess to break the dead silence that was coming throughout the entire church. But then, on a fateful night in August of 2013, the first bullet was shot in TWA. So it's the day before our show, and I think we're down at the carnival or something, which is literally right down the hill from the church. I mean, you could see it at the carnival. And so we're down there walking around, and at least I am, me and my friends. And I see David coming up and all the wrestling guys, so I go up try to talk to them, and I found out that TWA has been shut down. See, I guess the Sports Commission got a tip-off about our shows and how we are not licensed and we're doing these inside of a church, and they are the most rinky-dink wrestling shows ever. I'd assume that was the call. My best guess. So I guess the church calls David or whoever and says, look, we just got a call from the Sports Commission. This can't happen here. We're shutting this down. The event's not happening, which we had our next show 24 hours later. We were going to. So that didn't get to happen. What do we do now? I thought we were done. I'll be honest. I didn't think TWA was ever going to be a thing again. See, Justin was our referee from about late 2012 until we got shut down. He's a really good dude. I still talk to him to this day. I'd assume he talked to his dad, because I found out later, a couple days later, from David. Again, this is all my side of the story, so I don't know stuff, little details like that. But I assume Justin talked to his dad, and his dad offers to help us take the ring to a new location, which is one of our wrestlers' yards. So we have officially begun the backyard days, because before that, I hadn't anyway. I think TWA obviously had started in a backyard. I had never wrestled in a backyard. That's right. This was my first ever backyard wrestling match, even though I had been wrestling for, I think it was about 3 years. Here's some footage of that.
Oh, I think it's come down to this. Jay Styles and Zach Snow.
I have a bad feeling about this one. I have a bad feeling about this one. Bad feeling.
We got pin match. 1, 2, oh, he kicks out.
Yeah, it's very bad. It's not good at all. This is the only footage that we even have of it anymore because it was such a stinker of a show. But Justin's dad, Jeff, takes the ring for us, moves it over there. We had our show. And at this point, we don't even know what our future is because I believe the one wrestler who let us have the show in his yard in the most backyard wrestling fashion ever, his mom tells us that we can't do that show there anymore, that that's not happening again. So we're out of another location. And once again, Justin's dad, Jeff, saves the day and lets us put shows on there. And that's great. I think we still had plans of using that little rinky-dink ring again. Not a problem. But then we get a message from the Wall, Kyle Wall, who wrestled with us before as well. He had done a few matches at the church. I believe David gets a message from him that basically says, hey, I got a loan out for this professional wrestling ring. I need a place to store it. Do you have a place that we can run shows? Who was it? Jeff. That was it. And we're like, that's great. Like, awesome. Let's put this at Jeff's. We can have shows there. Not a problem, at least for the foreseeable future. So we get this ring, and we're all a bunch of amateurs. We have no idea what we're doing with the wrestling ring. So we set it all up. And it basically was the first like 6 shows at Jeff's was more or less our training because we didn't really have any training prior to that. And the first time I was ever in a wrestling ring and actually moved around was the same day of our first show in the snow at Jeff's house. So basically our first 6 months is what it really took me before I started getting some steam and really learning what to do in a wrestling ring. Learning, I should say, because it was never professional. And I can assure you right now that I would say late 2014 until 2016 was by far the best and funnest time I've ever had in backyard wrestling. I mean, there's no comparison to it. I met so many people, and really the biggest point was bringing in Real Deal Wrestling. And again, I'm not the best at the details about how they got in contact, and you know, I had nothing to do with that, so I'm gonna let somebody else explain it to you.
What is up, guys? My name is Jordan the Giant Cassad, and hashtag excellence Zach Snow asked me to make this video. This feels like a cameo, but I'm not getting paid for this, and that's how did I get introduced into TWA? Well, we were doing Real Deal Wrestling. We have all these great belts here we had back in the day. And we got word that a trained professional, big deal, coming to our show to see us work. And he came, and we were like so nervous. I remember the night before, I'm like, we're gonna wrestle in front of a trained professional. This was on work mats in our backyard. And Kyle Wall walks up, and I don't know if you know who Kyle Wall is. If you know TWA, you probably do. And it's Kyle Wall. He was our trained professional. He's the one who introduced Jordan the Giant Cassad and the Round Table and the Real Deal Wrestling to TWA. That's what happened. It's a hell of a story. It's pretty awesome. And now we have friends for life. Off screen, only off screen. Yes, and now we're doing RDW. I'm sure Zach will talk about that. I'm sure he has.
And there you go. Right from Jordan the Giant Cassad to Big Mouth. I'm actually gonna link their profiles down there in the comments, and they're also in my featured channel. Go check out the Round Table and Real Deal Wrestling and subscribe to both of them. Yeah, guys, so it was actually Kyle Wall who got us in contact with Real Deal Wrestling. And I'll be honest, when I had first seen their footage, I didn't want to bring them in. And of course, that's no offense to anybody that was wrestling for Real Deal at the time. A lot of them are very personal and close friends to me now. I just didn't want... We were just starting to find our way in the wrestling ring, and I felt at the time like it would almost decrease our quality if we brought in guys who had never been in a ring before and have to start this process all over again. And no offense to them, but their videos weren't exactly the most professional, and I was going for this all-out professional, as close as you can for a backyard show to the real deal. But obviously it happened, and they came in and they did their first shows late 2014 with us, and I didn't have a problem with any of them after that. Jason, we kind of butted heads, but it was for really stupid reasons, and there was really no real beef. It just was more of a miscommunication than anything. So, but other than that, I didn't have a problem with anybody, and we adapted, and soon we became very close, I feel like, to all of them. And that's when the period started, because we had, the high class society, and we had the round table came in, and it was just so much fun during that period, because we expanded on a lot of storylines, and we had a lot more fun doing it like that. And at the same time as this, our fan base is also increasing, so now we're getting more people, not only to our YouTube, which had merged with Jordan's at the time, but also live audience. It wasn't unusual to bring in 70, 80, sometimes 90 fans to a show, and for a backyard wrestling show, that's pretty impressive, and that's something that we're all pretty still proud of. But alas, as it does in every other story, the story has to end sometime, and TWA had run its course at that point. And after Jordan, Jason, and Luke leaving due to some disputes with the landowner, we also got into it as well with him, and we were forced to leave, and that ultimately shut down TWA, because we didn't have any plans of doing it after that. I feel like we had all felt like we had told our story the best that we could. So we shut down in 2016 and left behind a decade's worth of memories as far as TWA, from starting in Ben's backyard to another backyard just with a real ring and real fans, online and in person. And the fans were some of the best part. Absolutely. To see all these subscribers start coming in and all these views, we were racking in thousands of views per video, and which is really impressive. And like I said, the live fans, and to hear people compliment you on your work and say how much their work means to them. And we have been told that some fans used us as an escape from their own personal lives, and it's crazy to think about the influence that we had on people. For, like I said, just some backyard company, I feel like we made some noise during those 3-4 years that we were on the uprise. And ultimately, who knows where we could be now if TWA hadn't shut down. It's something I really wonder a lot. So the shutdown happens in 2016, and that's it, and we're moving on. I've done a lot since then. It's now 2020, obviously. About a couple months ago, we get a text from the round table asking about the ring, which they had been asking really since we shut down, because they did another company, which me or David wasn't a part of, obviously. We weren't allowed back, called All for Gold. But they did that. It didn't pan out the way that they had imagined it, and All for Gold closed. So fast forward to a couple months ago, and we get this text from them that they were looking to buy the ring and to get in contact with Jeff. We hadn't talked to Jeff. There was no way that we could get a hold of Jeff. Jeff still does not like us. That's just how it is. The landowner, Jeff, is not a fan of us to this day, and the feeling's mutual. So one way or the other, they get a hold of the other landowner. I'm not going to say her name out of respect. She talks to Jeff. One way or another, they get the ring. Those three guys bought the ring from Jeff, and they have it now at Zach Johnson, who was also another former RDW and TWA wrestler. Fast forward to about a month ago, when I decide, I pop into an open ring just to check the place out, check the ring out. And within my first open ring there, I decided that, and I had no intentions of getting in the ring or doing anything there, just hanging out with the guys, seeing the ring, that was it. And I would say within the first 25 minutes to half hour, I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get back in that ring. And as you guys may or may not have seen on the Real Deal Wrestling YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to right down below, links in the description, I made my return. And I am backyard wrestling once again at 20 years old, almost 21 years old. So I'm back doing this for the foreseeable future. And that's where we are to this day. So that is pretty much my history of backyard wrestling. And as much fun as the events may have been and the matches that I had, the most fun that I had was meeting all of these people. At one point, we had a group of guys from Florida come up to us in Pennsylvania just to wrestle for our show. And that means a lot to think about now. The people that I met between Jay Styles and the Round Table and Justin Kreiser and Robert Mist and Kyle Wall. There's so many people, Deadeye Dylan McQuinn, that I met along this way, King Crazy, that I wouldn't have met if it wasn't for this crazy road that I ventured down 10 years ago. And it blows my mind to think how far we've come and how much memories I've made and how much great friends I've met in the process. Even you, Jason Bain. Yeah, I guess that's it. Like I said, I'm back in Real Deal Wrestling, so you can go ahead and subscribe below. There's going to be new episodes weekly. You do not want to miss this. This is going to be as good, if not better, as TWA ever was. I mean, you got me as the poster child. What more do you need? And remember to like and subscribe this video, share it, get the name out there. Any publicity is good publicity, and all publicity helps a bunch. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this documentary, if you will, of my history in backyard wrestling. I appreciate you as always, and I'll see you in the next one.
Change the world. My final message.